Dr. Koel Mitra from Neoshe University, West Bengal. মই প্ৰথমতে আপোনালোক সকলোকে আজিৰ স্পিকাৰ ডক্টৰ কোয়েল মিত্ৰৰ বিষয়ে কেইটামান কথা অৱগত কৰিব বিচাৰিছো। তেওঁ ডিজিটেল হিউমেনিটিজত PhD কৰিছে যাদৱপুৰ ইউনিভাৰ্চিটিৰ পৰা আৰু কেইটামান কথা মই প্ৰথমতে আপোনালোকক অৱগত কৰিলে ভাল পাম। ডক্টৰ কোয়েল মিত্ৰ is an experienced assistant professor of English which demonstrated history of working in the education management industry for over 8 years. Skill in setting up Department of English at both college and university level. Her research area includes digital humanities, critical theory, Latin American literatures, comparative literature, innovative learning technique, editing, translation, English language teaching, and training in soft skill in communication. She is a strong education professional who has completed her BA Honours and MA in Comparative Literature from Jadavpur University, Kolkata, and has secured first-class first gold medals in both the degrees. She has done a PG Diploma in Appreciation of Modern Indian Art and has stood first-class first in the same. She has also completed a PG Diploma in Digital Humanities and Cultural Informatics in the first class. She has completed her PhD degree in Digital Humanities from Department of Comparative Literature, Jadavpur University, Kolkata. May I request Dr. Koel Mitra to deliver her lecture. Dr. Mitra, okay.
Thank you, Dr. Neo. I so hope that everybody understands what I am saying, because this is going to be a very new topic unless you have already had classes on this before. And also, if I'm asking questions, students, please feel free to unmute yourselves and answer. Let this be an interactive class and more than a one-way lecture of sorts. So has anybody in this class before today heard about digital humanities or has any experience in reading up digital humanities? This is for the students, not for Dr. Neo, because he obviously has heard. Any students in this community has before today heard about digital humanities or done any bit of digital humanities before today? Okay, so I don't see answers. So probably you have not done digital humanities before. At the very onset, we have to understand that digital humanities is obviously an academic discipline, but it's not an academic subject. And there is a difference between the two. If we say this is an academic subject, for instance, Ohomia is an academic subject. For instance, Bangla, English literature, these are academic subjects. Digital humanities is not a subject. When I say that, what do I essentially try and mean? Whenever we talk about a subject and a discipline, an academic discipline is anything which you study. If there is a proper curriculum and if there is a proper syllabus and you want to study about that syllabus, about that curriculum over an extended period of time, anything of that sort is a discipline. However, it is different from calling it a subject. A subject is basically the what of study. I will also try and use the chat box here so that everybody can see. Particularly in studying humanities, there are two things which one needs to always keep in mind: what to study and how to study. Whenever we are trying to talk about what to study, we are basically talking about a subject. So if I was an artist and therefore I wanted to draw, say, an apple, then as an artist, I can be reading 20 other books and I can be practicing 20 forms of drawing an apple. But the apple will remain the subject. But the artist, if one were to say, is art a subject? No, art is not a subject. Art is the discipline which teaches you how to draw certain subjects, such as the apple. On the other hand, after the what comes the how of study, and the how is generally what we typically refer to as the methodology. Digital humanities is a methodology of studying humanities. The subject will still remain humanities. This is very important to understand, because at the end of your course, whichever, I hope this is a one semester course, at the end of your one semester, if anybody asks you, what did you study in digital humanities? We did not study anything in digital humanities. We learned in digital humanities. What did we learn? We learned whatever we originally had to learn, whether or not we turned digital. How did we learn? We learned the same subject digitally by applying certain digital tools. We will come to it in a moment, and I will try and explain in details the methodology bit. But at the very onset, in the first class, if today's lecture were to be titled as What is Digital Humanities? Then the first thing, of course, digital humanities is an academic discipline which deals more with the methodology of studying humanities with the use of digital tools. We will still be studying concepts, ideas, strategies, which we were studying earlier. So if one were to study, I'm giving random examples here, you can replace that with any other examples. Say one were to study Rabindranath Tagore. We will still keep studying Rabindranath Tagore. When we are doing digital humanities, we do not study a robot. We will keep studying whatever we were studying in our analog disciplines. But we will try and see if we can introduce new methodologies for studying Rabindranath Tagore, and if certain methodologies can be aided or implemented with digital tools. What these digital tools are, we will come to it as and when we reach there. But for now, I want all of you to understand that digital humanities, of course, is an academic discipline. It is more than an academic subject. We really do not study what in digital humanities. In digital humanities, the key verb instead of what is how, because it is a methodology of studying traditional humanities subjects with the help of digital tools. Now, the class, tell me if you've understood till this much. This is half your work done. If you've understood this much, you will eventually get there little by little. Have you all understood whatever I'm trying to say till this much? Upasana Bora, have you understood?
বুজি পাইছা? বুজি পাইছা নয়ন বুজি পাইছা?
পাইছো।
Yeah.
Or if Dr. Neo can also translate this bit in Assamese, I will wait for a few minutes. If you can translate this in Assamese, I want the students to really understand.
They are easily following your.
Okay.
Yeah, following you. Yeah. Okay.
So the next thing is, whenever we try and talk to people about digital humanities, after you finish doing this course, people will obviously come and ask you, what have you learned in digital humanities? What have you studied? We do digital humanities. The verb which we use, because it is a methodology and not an object of study, we will call it doing DH, not studying DH. Because digital humanities is about implementing, is about using digital tools in order to study existing humanities. What is existing humanities is not a question which I need to discuss in this class, because it is already at a university level, at a master's level, and people have already done a whole bit of humanities already. But here on, we will try and see how we can do digital humanities by implementing certain digital tools, whereby it will become way easier and effective in computing earlier kinds of humanities which we did for so long. How we get there is more often the question. So now let's ask, previously we used to write with pen and paper. Today, let's say many of us write the same thing, but instead of writing with pen and paper, we write it in, say, Microsoft Word. Is typing your assignments in Microsoft Word a practice in digital humanities? It's a question for the class. In writing with pen and paper, supposing you were to write your assignments, but you wrote your assignments with Microsoft Word, would you call that digital humanities? Yes? No? Anybody?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay. So the correct answer to this question would actually be no. Because what you're actually doing, you are reproducing same content in a different platform. Digital humanities is not about replacing platforms. It is about adding platforms at the methodology level, not at the delivery level. If you are still thinking buying traditional books, such as, let's say, the one I have in hand, if you're still reading traditional books, if you're still writing whatever you would otherwise write if you were writing with a pen and paper, and you have just changed the end platform, that is not digital humanities. Because as I kept saying, digital humanities is a methodology which will change your way of working with the humanities at the process level, not at the end delivery level. The change will be made at the process level. Now, if I were to ask you, let's say there are, let's say me, Koel Mitra is a very famous author, and I have written 20 novels in all my life. But you want to figure out, and let's also say that I have a pet dog, which is also true. I do have a pet dog. Now, let's say you want to find out how many novels I have written before I had a pet dog, and how many novels I have written after I had the pet dog at home. How will you figure it out? Let's just get random examples from the class. Anybody? I have written 20 novels in all my life, and it's all up there. It's up on the internet, so you can access it from the internet. Now you want to figure out how many of these 20 novels I have written before I had a pet dog, and how many novels I have written after I had a pet dog. How do you traditionally think about solving this problem? Forget digital humanities now. How do you traditionally want to solve this problem? How will you know? Anybody? The whole class is very, very quiet. Okay, so one way of looking at it is to go through my writings and to see if I have mentioned about a dog in any of my novels. And then you will see that there are novels in which I have mentioned repeatedly about a dog. You will obviously understand, acha, so these are the works which madam has written after she started keeping a dog. This is the easier way of doing it. And there are other novels in which there is no mention of dog. What do you do about that? You see, there will be a possibility that novels in which I did not mention about a dog, it could be because by that time I did not keep a dog, or it could also be because I had already kept a dog, but I decided not to mention about the dog in my novel. Both the options are possible. Are you understanding what I'm saying? If my novel already mentions a dog, then obviously I have kept a dog, and after keeping the dog, I have written those novels. But if I have not mentioned a dog in my novel, there could be two other options. One option could be, yes, really, I had written the novel before I started keeping a dog. And the second could be, I have written the novel after I have kept the dog, but I chose not to mention about the dog. So if you were to frame a question, how will you now frame the question? Will your question ever be which novels had Koel madam written before she kept a dog? Or will your question be which novels had Koel madam written after she kept a dog? What is your right question going to be? The first one or the second one? Will you ask a question about how many novels Koel madam had written before she kept a dog? Or will your right research question be how many novels has madam written after she kept a dog? What is going to be your correct question?
Second.
Correct. Nayan Cheti is absolutely correct. Pratishika is also giving the correct answers. I'm so glad all of you are understanding. You see, the focus has readily shifted from giving the right answer to asking the right question. In all our life of writing answers, taking examinations, writing assignments, we have perennially been bothered about how to give a right answer. Because if we do not give a right answer, we will not get great marks. All our getting good grades depends on what kind of answers we are giving. But you will see at a research level, more than giving a right answer, it becomes important to trace which is the right question to ask. And because it is only 20 novels, it is easy for us to think in our heads what kind of question is the right question. Now, supposing instead of 20 novels which Koel madam had hypothetically written, if it was 20,000 novels, and now you were to also find out how many novels madam had written after starting to keep a dog, would you be able to manually figure out how many of the 20,000 novels she has written after she kept a dog? Is it possible? Is it humanly possible to trace 20,000 written works in which the word, let's say, dog appears? Because one easy way to figure out whether she has written it after keeping a dog is to figure out whether the word dog exists in her writings. If the word dog does not exist, then probably, as I mentioned earlier, then probably she did not keep a dog then, or she chose not to talk about the dog. So our new research question will not be about the phase in which the word dog is absent. The new research question will be framed on the lines of where the word dog is present. Now, out of 20 works, maybe it's easy because let's say 10 out of 20 works readily mentions the word dog, and you can read it manually and figure out how many works contain the word dogs. But supposing my written works is like the stature of Rabindranath Tagore, and I have written as much as Tagore has written. In that, is it humanly possible to manually browse through book pages and figure out how many times the word dog appears? Is it easy to figure it out? No. How will you then try and understand how many times the word dog appears for an author whose at least 20,000 work exists up on the internet? How do you think you will do it?
Ma'am, we can try the novels in a PDF file and search the word dog one by one on each novel.
Correct. I mean, I'm more interested in getting these basic answers. Whether we can brush up and create a better answer is the second concern. The first concern is we are thinking correctly along the right lines. So basically, we have to create a search engine, right or not, Debashish? From what you said, and you rightly pointed out, Debashish is right in saying, so basically whether the document is PDF or it will be easier if the document is HTML, those are different questions. What Debashish Buragohai is trying to point out is that the fact that we need to readily have a search engine where we can enter the word dog and press enter. Now the responsibility is no longer manually on us. Whatever little search engine we have created, it's the search engine's responsibility to figure out of all the 20,000 words, the word dog appears, let's say 5,234 times. I'm giving random examples. Now one can readily understand that at least these 5,324 times the word dog appears, which means the word dog, which means madam has kept the dog on or after these many words. Now, how do you figure out which is the first work? Because that will lead us to the answer, when was the first time madam got a dog? How do you reach the first date of where the word dog is mentioned? I'm trying to manually take through how a computer program works. Let's say the word dog appears, okay, 5,300 blah blah is too difficult. Let's just keep it at 5,000. Let's say the word dog appears 5,000. How do we know when was the first time the word dog appeared out of these 5,000 times? Anybody? This is a very easy question. I mean, I think most of you know the answer, but you're just feeling, shy, or I don't know what to answer it, because it's an easy question this time. Debashish has already answered the more difficult question. How do you figure out which word or which place is the first place where the word dog appears in all these 5,000 times? Nobody? You try and trace it to the date then. Then you try and figure out, you introduce a second category. First, you have a search engine where you try and understand how many times the word dog appears. So maybe you have a search engine. After that, you probably will want to date the search. And how do you typically date a search? How do you know who's the oldest student in the class? Class সবচেয়ে কার বয়স বেশি? Is there anybody who understands Bangla? I don't know. Maybe I'll keep continuing in English. How do you know who's the oldest student in class? How do you date a random person, or how do you date a random search?
Date of birth.
Yeah, okay. So you have some idea about what to hold on to. For a piece of, if it is about the age of a human being, you look at the date of birth and you immediately understand this person is older to that person. So in all probability, Dr. Niyog is older to Nayan Chetia. We understand that by referring to dates of birth. If it is about a published work, how do we understand which work was published before which work?
Writing times.
Publication date, the date of publication. Nayan is on fire today. Nayan is giving all correct answers. So we now have two categories which already we are operating in our heads. First, we want to create a search engine which will help us figure out how many times the word dog exists. Second, we understand that now that we already figured out how many times the word dog exists, we have to now search it. In order to get the oldest work, we have to search the dates in ascending order. And in order to get the youngest or the latest work in which the word dog is mentioned, we have to place the search in descending order. This much is clear to everybody? Ascending order will give you the idea of the oldest work, and descending order will give you the idea to the oldest work. Then if you find out that the earliest time in which the word dog appears, let's say that date is year 2010, then one can make a guess that at least 2010 or after, madam has a dog. The thing which we were doing is not digital in itself. We were actually talking of a human being, an author, a dog, and finding out. But how we were doing it involved certain digital tools and technologies and methodologies. Now one way of doing it is to, how many of you in this class know how to create a search engine? I'm sure the answer will be none, because it's a literature and language department. Almost nobody will be in a position to understand how to create a search engine. But supposing a search engine has already been made and you have been given proper training of how to use it, will it be that difficult for you to figure out on your own how to do an ascending order search and a descending order search, etc.? This answer will be no. If there is a tool which has already been created and you have been taught how to use that digital tool, you will be in a position to figure out how the work is compiled, how the work is edited, which version of the work exists before which other version of the work. All this will come down to you very easily. Let's say till the 1980s or till the 1990s, this were a real research. If you talk to our generation who were born in the 80s, or even people below, slightly below us in age, slightly above us in age, if we were to talk to them about what was your research topic, many researchers still today will say, I was trying to look at the element of romanticism in William Wordsworth. This was a real research till say 1990s, or sometimes even beyond that. Many people would actually tell you that I researched on the element of romanticism in the writings of William Wordsworth. How much time did you take to do this research? Oh, don't tell me, my fellowship was stuck in between and I was trying to do a whole lot of work. This library was closed and that library was closed. This time I went and I fell sick, so I had to go back to the library that time. In all, I took 6 years to complete this research. These are not abnormal talks which I'm saying. In fact, till a long time in the history of academic humanities research, these lines of talk were extremely common. People would talk about what kind of romantic elements exist in the works of William Wordsworth. And for that, they took a whole lot of 6 years to do that. If your generation, after studying digital humanities, were to do this research, how much time would you take roughly to do this entire research, which an earlier researcher before you had done in 6 years? How much time would you approximately take? My answer would be something around 6 minutes. That entire 6-year work would be condensed in your generation to some flimsy 6 minutes. Why? How did you understand whether William Wordsworth was a romantic or not? You tried to figure out certain phrases, certain expressions, which you thought were romantic. Let's say you wanted to look at the word love. Let's say you wanted to look at the word nature, or any element of nature that exists, because in your head, you already have a certain kind of structural analysis, which in the sense of computing technology, one calls algorithm. Has anybody in this class heard the word algorithm before? This word algorithm, has anybody in this class heard this word before? Algorithm. This is a very common word for people who are always working with computers. Algorithm basically means logical steps and structures through which we follow and therefore solve a problem. If you were to figure out whether William Wordsworth is a romantic or not, even manually, how would you do? You will follow a certain algorithm. That algorithm would be, you will first find out what you want to understand by the word romantic. Let's say from the word romantic, you want to trace elements that talk about love. elements that talk about nature, elements that talk about compassion, etc. And then you would manually try and scan through the pages and writings of William Wordsworth and try and figure out if those words or phrases exist in his works. And then you will try and analyze if the word love exists, what it could mean for Wordsworth, and if the word love exists, what it could mean for Shelley or other contemporary romantic writers of that age. If you were to structurally place all this algorithm and search criteria in a search engine, the result would reach you in another 6 minutes. So today, in most of the contemporary research, which was contemporary for 1980s and 1990s, most of the work which happened at that time will now be referred to as a redundant research. This research is no longer necessary because it does not take a person a whole lot of 6 years and whole lot of sarkari stipend to do a work which can be done sitting in a person's computer in some 6 minutes. So recently there is this new film which has released called Pushpa. Has any one of you seen Pushpa already? Anybody seen Pushpa? Anybody already knows about Allu Arjun, knows about Rashmika Mandana? I so loved all the songs that are there in Pushpa.
Yes, ma'am.
If I were to ask you, what is the name of the dancer who danced that famous item number in Pushpa? What is your answer? Who is the person who danced that item number in Pushpa? Oh, Mantava, whatever that song is. Who is the dancer? What is the name of the dancer?
Samantha.
Samantha. How do you know? When you were born, did you know the name Samantha already? You did not know. You figured it out at some point. How did you know? You obviously saw them in your social media. And many of you then Googled it, then figured out how this works. So once again, we fall back to the classical idea of search engine, of searching. Today, if one were to therefore ask, what do you do in digital humanities? In digital humanities, we create our own digital tools so as to make studying humanities easier. We do not study about robots. Many people will then ask you, since you have studied digital humanities, how much do you know about artificial intelligence? We do not know about artificial intelligence. How much do you know about computer programming? We do not know about computer programming. I mean, we could know. If you were interested, you could learn a language. But it is not a prerequisite to know computer programming in order to do digital humanities. In order to do digital humanities, it is essential for all of us to understand the basics of how to create digital tools in order to study whatever we otherwise study in our humanities. Is everybody understanding what I'm saying? Nayan was answering something, but then he is on mute, so I couldn't hear his answer. You can answer? All of you can answer what I'm trying to say? Digital humanities is a basic discipline in which we take the digital methodology by creating digital tools in order to approach the large corpus of studying humanities. So now I am going to ask you, what is one of the famous authors you study in your Assamese literature? Just give me any name, enlighten me. You talk to me about Assamese literature and I talk to you about digital humanities. Talk to me about any Assamese famous author.
Shankardev.
Sorry?
Shankardev.
I so can't hear the word. Can one of you type it down in the chat box?
Ma'am, Lakshminath Besbarua.
I am so sorry. I can't feel. Can just one of you type out the name in the chat box so that I can...
TEZPUR, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Now, how much has he written in his entire life? Oh, Lakshmikant Besbarua. Okay, yeah. How much has Lakshmikant Besbarua written in his entire life? And how much did you all study till now? How many of you can confidently say that you have read every bit of work by Lakshmikant Besbarua? Including all his letters, including everything that's ever there written by Lakshmikant Besbarua. Has anybody bothered to read up the entire corpus of the work written by this author? In all probability, the answer would still be no. And now if one were to work on how many editions of a certain work exists written by Lakshmikant Besbarua, how are you going to figure out editions? Do you know what editions are, by the way? Editions are different versions. Is edition and reprint the same thing? There are two things written on a book. One is second edition, and the other is the second reprint. Is there a difference between an edition and a reprint?
Yes, ma'am.
What is the difference, Devashish?
Most of the times, reprint means the same things available in the first print, printed in the second print as well. But in the edition, usually some sort of paragraphs or chapters are included in those editions.
Correct. So in an edition, there has got to be some change from the earlier version, from the earlier edition. A reprint is just the number of copies went out from the press. So you reprint exactly the same thing which already exists. But for an edition, there is supposed to be a change from the earlier edition, which is why a new edition had to come out. Now, one would be very interested, if one was studying humanities, one would be very interested in studying what kind of changes have been made in the later editions in the works of Lakshminath Bezburwa. Thank you, Bijamoni. I was pronouncing it wrong all the while. Thank you once again. So my question is, there has to be some changes in one of the later editions. Otherwise, there wouldn't be an edition. How would you figure out what are the changes in the earlier edition and the later edition in the similar works of Lakshminath Bezburwa? Why is it even important to know? There are two questions. First question is, why is it important to know if there are changes in the two editions? And second, if there are changes in the two editions, then apparently what are the kinds of changes and how do you find it out? Yes, anybody? This much everybody understands that there are to be some changes. That is why it's a second edition or a later edition. Now it's important. Why is it important to study between editions and figure out what changes have been made? Because then one has to understand that the writer or the author has some idea in his or her mind based on which the person has decided to change the earlier version and get back to the later. I'm sure almost nobody is getting interested in whatever I'm trying to say because gradually all cameras are turning off. Can you please return your cameras on, because unless I see the students, I have no clue what's happening. If the students are even there. Happens with students in my university as well. I have no clue if they are even there. Thank you so much. So why is it important to figure out if there are changes? It will help us in understanding that whether the author has had some change in mind, some change in temperament, whether the author wants to add something new, and if the author wants to add something new, why the author wants to add something new. So this bit is a work in typical humanities. Even if there are say 3 editions in a certain work by Rabindranath Tagore, we would probably try and see what are the changes in the editions, why the changes have been made. Then this much is typical traditional humanities. This much is not a problem. Researchers across the world have often done this much to understand what is different in editions in the works of a certain famous author. But the next question is, how do you readily figure out the changes? For so long, before digital humanities came in, people would do that manually. Now we would create a certain digital scanner. And the work of the scanner would be typically to find out only the changes between two works. You place work A and you place work B and you turn the scanner on. And you ask the scanner to find out what are the differences. Or you ask the scanner to find out what are the similarities, any which way. Whatever is the difference is a change in the edition. And in the next 2-3 minutes, you figure out these are the changes in edition. And then you try and figure it out in your traditional humanities way, why the change has taken place. Can any of you tell me the easiest example of a scanner which immediately checks for similarities in two texts? This much everybody will know. And when I give you the answer, you will say, oh, we already know about it. Any scanner, any commonly available scanner, which will immediately tell you about the similarities between two texts. Anybody? Okay, I'll give out this answer. The easiest example is a plagiarism checker. Have you all heard about plagiarism checkers? You know, anytime you want to submit an assignment, you are supposed to submit a plagiarism report. A plagiarism checker or plagiarism scanner is typically the thing that we are talking about. In the plagiarism checker, the programming has been done in a way that the program tries to check the similarities between text A and text B. And if this program is possible, then of course the other programs also possible. A program in which between text A and text B, the scanner will not find out the similarities, but find out the differences. If we were to create the program just in the reverse way, that would become an edit scanner. An edit scanner is a scanner which checks for changes in editable content between version A and version B. The point that I'm trying to raise is everything that we are doing is a work which typically exists in humanities, in traditional humanities. By introducing digital tools, we are trying to simplify effectively how to work with traditional humanities by using digital tools. And in the senior levels of digital humanities, if you were to take up digital humanities as seriously as I did in my life, if any of you would be that interested in doing digital humanities, then probably in the end, you will also learn with your hands-on approach to create your own tools. Many of you will learn how to write a programming language, how to create your own tools. Till then, at least for the first lecture, when you have typically zero idea about what digital humanities is, what you are expected to understand is the fact that we are not doing out of the way things in humanities. We are doing structurally similar content as we already did in traditional humanities. We're only adding and extending digital tools to effectively minimize and simplify our search in typical humanities. Is that okay with everybody? Because I know today's class is titled Defining Digital Humanities. I will keep on saying these things. Tomorrow, when we talk about the history of digital humanities, I will tell you about how it all began. And we will get such lovely examples from across the world, you will be startled. If at the end of this class, at least 2 to 5 students of the entire strength that is there decides to create your own digital tools, may not be tomorrow, but at some point in your PhD level or at a later research level, that's going to be great. It is also to mention that the way research is headed and at the way in which humanities research is headed, whether you're doing proper digital humanities or not, whatever you're trying to do will have to engage digital tools. Without engaging digital tools, there's almost nothing that can be done these days. Because that will take up so much of your time if you were to do it in the traditional way. One cannot afford that much time. By that time, people in other parts of the world will have published 20 other papers, 10 other books. And if we are not resorting to digital tools, we will fall back. And typically that. What is additionally interesting for your case is the point that I will now talk about. This much, the basics of digital humanities. Now we're going to go to step 2 of the basics of digital humanities. You have to understand that it's easier to talk about digital humanities if we were to talk about Latin and Neo-Latin languages, because it readily already exists up on the internet. If I were to talk about English literature, it isn't too much of a big deal to locate English literature on the internet already. Because so many people for so many years across the world have written so much in English, it's already there. It's so largely read, written, and accepted that English is already there. If one were to do Spanish literatures, it's already there up on the internet. But it's all the more important for Indians to do digital humanities in order to promote their vernacular languages in the web. How much of digital content in Assamese do you have up on the internet? Same is also true for Bangla, which is my native tongue. How much of digital content do you already have up on the web written in Assamese? Is there much? Is there as much as
Not very much.
Not very much. In fact, it's actually going to be very less. Bangla still till some extent there, not because how much Kolkata and West Bengal did, but more because of how much Bangladesh did. Because, you know, Bangla is a language which is spoken by an entirely different country. But as much as Assamese is concerned, as much as Gujarati is concerned, as much as Marathi is concerned, as much as all the other vernacular Indian languages that all of us speak, and then we keep talking to each other about how multilingual a country we are, how much of our vernacular languages is up there on the internet? It's very, very less. If the content is already digitized and up on the web, you can readily start accessing them and working on them. You can readily start creating search engines, creating tools, scanning them, finding out similarities, finding out differences, getting to results, asking right questions, scanning ascending order of dates, and doing every other difficult and easy things that you will hear on learn about DH. But what happens if the content written in your language is not even there? What do you do? How do you start? Is our struggle the same as the struggle of one student who's studying in the UK? Is our struggle the same as the struggle of a student who's studying in the USA and both of whom speak English? Is the struggle similar in nature? Are you understanding my question? My question is, for us who speak Assamese, Gujarati, Marathi, Bangla, and any other vernacular Indian languages, we don't even have that much available language and literature written content up on the internet. In compared to, let's say, Chinese, in compared to English, in compared to Spanish, in compared to even French, we do not have that much content in the internet. So if I were a student who spoke and wrote English and I was based in the US, would my struggle be equal or similar to the nature of the struggle which a student studying Assamese and Bangla and Gujarati and Marathi and any other vernacular language be? Can you even compare the level of the degree of struggles? Is our struggle more than them or is our struggle less than them?
More than them.
Absolutely more than them. And if you were to ask how much more than them, we would say infinite times more than them. Because their struggle starts by understanding how to create digital tools with which we can start doing digital humanities. We have to start 5 steps behind. We have to start from first typing all content digitally and posting them up on the internet. And this phase is called archiving. I will write this word in the chat box so everybody can understand. So digital humanities done in the US, digital humanities done in the UK, digital humanities done in Latin America would be different from digital humanities done in India, because we're already 5 steps behind the way digital humanities is done in those parts of the world. It isn't about, one of the common questions which people will keep asking in the land of India is related to the question of poverty. How many students can access computers so that you talk about turning humanities into digital? That is not the real question to ask. If we have a mobile phone which has internet, we are already entering into the digital world in itself. That's not the right question to ask. The right question to really ask over here is the fact that even if we did have internet and the necessary tools theoretically, how much of it is practically possible for an Indian student to do, because we speak a language which does not exist as massively upon the internet as the other European languages, or as the other Asian but highly spoken languages such as Chinese. Even Hindi is not up there in the internet as much as English is, as much as Spanish and Chinese is. So we have to start 5 steps behind, which is why our struggle is way more difficult. Our struggle is way more tougher than anybody who's trying to do DH from other parts of the world. We are not even comparing ourselves to them. We have to start by doing archiving. What is archiving? Archiving is where a student first sits down to type everything that is there in your, say, Assamese literature and putting them up on the web. Archiving begins from clicking pictures of each page in a certain textbook that's there. And if it's just an image, and if you put up the image, can you search words from an image? You cannot. You cannot readily search from an image. If it's an image, you have to first click the image. You have to create certain kind of a search engine in which individual content becomes readable by the machine. So then a machine language training needs to come in. All these concepts you don't have to be feared of or scared about. I will explain in more details as and when the later classes come. But first understand what I'm trying to say. If it's an image which you're clicking off each page in a book, then you have to make it searchable, machine readable, because a computer cannot outright read an image. So either that, or you have to individually type all different kinds of Assamese content and paste them up on the web someplace, which becomes readily machine readable, from which searching can happen. And how much time is this activity going to take? If one were to type, individually type with proper spellings, proper punctuation, and if there are more than one edited versions, then all those different versions of all the lifetime works of Lakshminath Bezbarua, how much time would that take? Just give me random examples. 1 year would be
Enormous time.
enormous time. I don't think even 1 year would be enough. It's going to be some 5 years, 6 years. It's going to be a PhD level work in itself. If somebody decided to only digitize entire works of Lakshminath Bezborua, it's going to take some 5-6 years because there has to be spellings, there has to be grammar, there has to be punctuation, and if the person is a poet and the person has written his poems with a certain style, it's not about just converting prose. If it's a poem, it's also about the style. Somebody will write a long line and then follow it up with a shorter line and then again write a long line. Rabindranath Tagore was famous for scribbling off work which he did not like. It's called doodles. It's called, most of you will know about doodles. And later on, it has been found out that the way he doodled became pictures and images in itself. In some place, he cut off portions of poems he did not like, and that doodle ended up looking like a bird. Then you have to reproduce that. How much time will it take if one were to convert an entire author's work in a vernacular language, first put it up on the internet? As Debashish correctly pointed out, it's going to take enormous time. So at our level, in order to do digital humanities, we cannot start off by talking about creating digital tools at step 1. Our step 1 is not to learn how to create digital tools. Our step 1 is first to learn how to digitize from an analog platform. And the process of digitizing any content from an analog platform to a digital platform is called digital archiving. Digital archiving is an extremely serious affair. In that, one has to take so many concepts into mind. One has to be so attentive. One has to be so meticulous. It's almost like we are first converting ourselves to human machines so that machines can take over the work from us for our future generations. If you start the work today, probably 5 batches below you who would also do a master's in Assamese from TEZPUR University would be in a place to start talking about HTML. We cannot start talking about HTML because our first work is to get it digitized. Digital archiving is where we start from. We are already at a disadvantage. And I congratulate all of you. I particularly congratulate Dr. Subrat Niyog for deciding to introduce digital humanities in a vernacular discipline. Even after pointing out, and I keep talking in so many seminars, workshops, even classrooms, and I keep talking to students, but we almost end up seeing that most digital humanities practices are done by departments of English in India because it's easy. Because for a student who's doing English in India, it's hardly methodologically different from doing English in the United States. It's hardly different from doing English in the United Kingdom. But to introduce a concept such as digital humanities in a vernacular language, such as the Department of Assamese in TEZPUR University, requires an absolute congratulations. This is from where India should start. This is the next step from where India should start looking at doing humanities with the help of digital tools. We are not even there. Any questions so far? Any doubts so far? It's 11:50 and we are in the last 10 minutes. In the last 10 minutes, it would be nice if we talk more than delivering a one-way lecture to the students. Tomorrow, we will start talking about the history of digital humanities, how it all began. Today, I wanted to tell you what is digital humanities. Dr. Niyog? Do you have any comments? If you think students need to ask questions, I'm gradually being more friendly, maybe. They will ask me directly.
But actually, we all enjoy your lectures. You were a very good orator. Entire session was very engaging. And now I want to conduct a Q&A session. মই আমাৰ ষ্টুডেন্টখিনিক কৈছো তোমালোকৰ যদি কিবা অবজাৰভেশন আছে কিবা কোৱেশ্চন আছে then
you can very conveniently ask the questions in Assamese also. Dr. Niyog will translate them for me. Don't worry about languages. Please ask in Assamese, but get your doubts cleared. Also, Dr. Niyog, congratulations for introducing DH in the Department of Assamese. I'm really curious to know how you thought about introducing DH. It's important to do DH in vernacular languages more than in English in India.
Actually, I'm happy to inform you that Department of Assamese, previously formerly named is Center for Assamese Studies, From the shares, Sankodev, we had a Sankodev shares. From the shares, Sankodev shares, we have done 4,000 books digital, 400 Assamese book in digitized form.
Wow,
And
that is amazing.
it encouraged us to introduce this course for the first time. And already we have conduct 3 seminars on DH. I have already informed you.
Yes.
First seminar is on digital humanities and culture, delivered by Samantak Das from Dadapur University. And
He was my sir.
second one is based on digital humanities and literature, Ujun Bruce from Delhi University, IIT Delhi. And third one is digital niche of digital humanities from Muirakshi Chakraborty from IIT Jodhpur. Now, after that, we introduced this course, and you were the first one who academically covered this syllabus. And I hope in future I will get help from your side.
Certainly. I am mad about digital humanities. I have been doing digital humanities since 2012, which is now 10 years. And I hope to continue doing digital humanities for another 20 years or even more. I have become
Professor Samantak Das has told about a lot of about you. You are a very good researcher and a very good orator, and you will be very good for our course. That's why he recommend your name for this course.
Thank you, Dr. Neo. Actually, well, honestly, I am gradually losing hope from seminars. I sincerely believe that teachers sitting with serious faces in seminars and taking smoke breaks and tea breaks out between sessions is not going to result in major changes in humanities practices. It's the students who will one day revolutionize the whole thing. Eventually, in the later course of lectures, we will talk about copyright, we will talk about copyleft, and we will try and see, because this is the generation who has stopped. Generation which has stopped buying CDs, movie CDs. This is the torrent generation. This is the YouTube generation. This is the, if you cannot watch pornography online because government has banned it, this is the generation which has decided how to introduce a VPN into their phones and keep doing things which the government has banned you from doing. This is the real born digital generation. This is the generation which will see a difference, which will understand how to share. And whole life you will hear problems in piracy. People will say piracy in theft. Piracy is theft. This is the generation which has started believing piracy is not theft. Piracy is sharing. We will get there as and when we get to the later parts of the lectures. It's absolutely amazing to know that you've already digitized more than 4,000 books. That is actually the need of the hour. If so many young students are doing DH, it's an amazing thing. I have lost hope from seminars. I still have hopes left in the young generation and in classrooms. Let's see where it all takes. Anyway, questions, comments, queries, doubts.
There is a question from Nayan Setia. First of all, Nayan Setia, thank you so much, ma'am, for your valuable lecture. And ma'am, I want to know what is the meaning of algorithm and how it is involved in digital humanities.
Thank you, Nayan. You have like hit the bullseye. That's like one question to ask. Algorithm is a logical structure of understanding what comes before and what comes after. Algorithm is a so supposing you tell a computer's normal IQ is 0. Algorithm we do not understand as much as conveniently because we already think logically. The human mind thinks logically. The computer cannot think logically. The typical IQ of a normal computer is 0. The computer is made to think. And even in artificial intelligence, the computer is fed with so many algorithm patterns that it starts developing a pattern on its own. But at the basic of everything, a computer cannot think of its own. If I would tell Nayan that Nayan, open the door forward and bring the chalk that is on my table. So Nayan will understand that Nayan will open the door, go inside, bring the chalk, then close the door or whatever. But the computer will not understand this. If I say open the door, close the door and bring the chalk, the computer will first open the door, then close the door, then go and bang itself on the door, and then it will not be able to bring the chalk. because the computer will not be able to process the fact that when I said close the door, I actually meant close the enter. That IQ is absent with the computer. So everything, what has to come in the middle and what has to come in the has to be structurally and very carefully defined. It does not exist in thin air. That structuring logically one step after another is called algorithm. And it's important in digital humanities because obviously we will be using computation in doing humanities, and the computer does not understand anything on its own. So it has to be fed, it has to be given a logic. If I tell the computer, take the glass, drink water, put the glass down, the computer will not understand you are supposed to drink water from the glass that you picked up. It exists in our human logic that if you pick up a glass and then if I ask you to drink water, you have to drink water from this glass. The computer does not understand this. So for a computer algorithm, you have to say, pick up the glass, drink the water that is there in the glass that you picked up. After drinking the glass from the water that is there in the glass that you picked up, put the same glass down. So that is how you need to feed in instructions to a computer. Otherwise, the computer cannot understand. That is algorithm. Have you understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Good, very good question. I'm with your question. Any other questions?
Aru question ase karbar?
Ma'am,
Yes, Devashish.
ma'am, I think the archiving needs multidisciplinary efforts. We humanities student cannot
Absolutely.
just alone do those things, those developing software stuff like that. So, is there any chance that we should include those from technical fields as well?
That is like $1 million question, Devashish. I have just put in my text 2 words, multidisciplinary versus interdisciplinary. This is a very important question, and I want the whole class to understand what he's saying. What Devashish is asking is very important. There are so many things involved, including creating a computer program. Many students of humanities are not skilled to prepare a computer program on their own. So will we take software professionals in to make a program? In this point, I want to talk to you about two separate, multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary. They were first originally mentioned in an essay by Stuart Hall, who was one of the masters figures in cultural studies, but I don't want to get into that details. As much as this class is concerned now, multidisciplinary subject is anything in which if there are 20 things required, then 20 specialists will come and sit together and create that. So if there is a computer programming required and if there is a grammarian required, then a computer programmer will come and a grammarian will come. A computer programmer will look after the computer programming bit, a grammarian will come and look after the grammar bit, and together they will sort a project. But digital humanities is not a multidisciplinary discipline. Digital humanities is an interdisciplinary discipline. Interdisciplinary means you have to cross disciplines. But for that, you have to go out of your way and learn skills from other disciplines. It's not as if I know A and you know B and she knows C, we will keep doing A, B, C and put it together. Interdisciplinary means I have to know B and C, B has to know A and C, C has to know A and B. Since digital humanities is an interdisciplinary method, we encourage one person to know both grammar and typing and searching and creating a program. So the entire skill, the entire method is available with one person. Then we can have 200 such interdisciplinary persons. But it is not as if first one person finishes writing the whole thing. Then one person sits and creates a search engine out of whole thing. Then a third person creates a scanner which tries and finds out similarity or differences. That's not how it works. If it's a large quantum, then 200 people can sit together, but everybody knows everything. Do you understand, Devashish, what I'm trying to say?
Yes, ma'am.
So if you want to do digital humanities, you have to learn programming. If you want to do digital humanities, you have to learn scanning. You cannot say, Acha, I will do this bit and then a computer programmer will come and do that. You have to know everything that is required to solve your own problem. And it's doable. It's very, very doable. It's only the mindset that has to change, that if you are a humanities student, you don't know as much of computing. Computing has changed radically across the world. It's doable and it's a very important question. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
আছো
হয় ছাৰ আছো
তোমালোকক এটা কথা এইটো কওঁ তোমালোকে হেৰি ক্লাছটো সকলোৱে ভাল পাইছা বুজি পাইছা সকলোৱে
স্যার পাইছো
পাইছা ঠিক আছে তোমালোকক এটা কথা কওঁ যে এই যেটো পাঁচটা লেকচাৰ হ'ব এই পাঁচটা লেকচাৰ বিশেষকে আমাৰ ফৰ্থ সেমিষ্টাৰ ল'ৰা-ছোৱালীখিনি কৈছো এই ফাৰ্স্ট পাঁচটা লেকচাৰৰ প্ৰত্যেকটো দিনৰ সামাৰি তোমালোকে লিখি পেলাই মোক জমা দিব লাগিব আৰু তোমালোকৰ ফাৰ্স্ট সেশনেলটো হ'ব এই পাঁচটা লেকচাৰৰ সামাৰি এটো অ্যাসাইনমেন্ট ডিজিটাল হিউম্যানিটিজৰ ফাৰ্স্ট সেশনেলৰ অ্যাসাইনমেন্ট হৈছে ডক্টৰ কোয়েল মিত্ৰাৰ পাঁচটা লেকচাৰৰ সামাৰি সকলো আছানে ফৰ্থ সেমৰ সকলো আছা
গুটেইখিনি নাই
গুটেইখিনি নাই যিখিনি আছে সেইখিনিকো কৈ দিবা আৰু দেৱাশিস আছা দেৱাশিস নাই দেৱাশিসে ৰেকৰ্ডিং কৰিছে দেৱাশিস আছা তুমি দেৱাশিস নাই সগে দেৱাশিসে ৰেকৰ্ডিং কৰিছে তোমালোকেও যদি ৰেকৰ্ডিং কৰিছা ৰেকৰ্ডিংটো তোমালোকে সকলোৰে লগত যি সকলে পোৱা নাই ৰেকৰ্ডিংটো দি দিবা গতিকে আৰু তাৰ পিছত তোমালোকে হেৰি কৰিবা দেৱাশিস আছা তুমি তোমালোকে ৰেকৰ্ডিং কৰিছা নেকি কোনোবাই মই দেৱাশিসক কৈ থোৱা আছিলে
কৰিছো
ঠিক আছে যি সকলে নাই পোৱা তুমি দি দিবা আৰু আমি তাৰ পিছত তোমালোকে পাঁচটা লেকচাৰ ফেব্ৰুৱাৰীৰ 20 তাৰিখৰ ভিতৰত তোমালোকে পাঁচটা লেকচাৰৰ সামাৰি মোক জমা দিবা আৰু হেতু হ'ব ফাৰ্স্ট সেশনেল তোমালোকৰ থ্যাংক ইউ জয়েন কৰাৰ কাৰণে আৰু কাইলে 11টা বজাত তোমালোকে সকলোৱে জয়েন কৰিবা ঠিক আছে